They laughed when she sat alone in the corner of that crowded military cafeteria, holding her tray with trembling hands, while whispers cut through the air like shrapnel. But what they didn't know was that in 72 hours, every single person in that room would be standing at attention because of her. Before we continue, drop a comment telling us what city or country you're watching this video from. Her name was Sergeant Maya Reeves, 29 years old, born and raised in a forgotten trailer park outside Bakersfield, California. She grew up watching her mother work 3 jobs just to keep the lights on, watching her older brother leave for the army and never come back the same. Maya learned early that survival wasn't about being the loudest or the strongest. It was about being the smartest, the most precise, the one who saw what others missed. When she was 17, a recruiter came to her high school. He talked about purpose, about honor, about becoming something more than your circumstances. Maya signed up the next day. She chose the U.S. Army Rangers, one of the most elite and demanding infantry units in the world. The training nearly destroyed her. Men twice her size collapsed during ruck marches while she kept moving, one foot in front of the other, her face blank but her mind screaming. She learned to shoot, to navigate, to lead under impossible pressure. She graduated in the top 15% of her class. But respect, that was something they never taught in any manual. Fort Benning, Georgia. The afternoon sun hung heavy over the sprawling base, heat radiating off the asphalt in visible waves. The dining facility was packed, hundreds of soldiers filling long tables. The noise a constant roar of metal trays, loud conversations, and bursts of laughter. Maya entered through the side door, her uniform crisp despite the humidity, her hair pulled back in a tight bun that revealed a face marked by exhaustion and quiet determination. She moved through the line silently, selecting her meal with mechanical efficiency. Grilled chicken, steamed vegetables, rice, no dessert. She never allowed herself that luxury. When she turned to find a seat, the room seemed to shift. Eyes followed her, not with curiosity, with something colder. She spotted an empty table near the back corner, away from the main clusters of soldiers. As she walked toward it, a boot shot out from beneath a nearby table. She saw it just in time, stepping over it without breaking stride. Laughter erupted behind her. She didn't turn around. She sat down, placed her tray carefully on the table, and began to eat. Alone. 3 tables over, a group of male rangers were watching her with barely concealed contempt. Corporal Jake Hendricks, a broad-shouldered Texan with a crooked smile and a reputation for cruel humor, leaned back in his chair and spoke loud enough for half the room to hear. "Hey, anyone else think it's cute how Reeves pretends she belongs here, like putting on the uniform makes you one of us?" His friends snickered. One of them, a wiry specialist named Torres, added, "I heard she needed 3 tries to pass the PT test. 3. My grandma could do it in 2. More laughter. Maya's fork paused halfway to her mouth. She set it down gently, her jaw tightening, but she didn't look up. She had learned long ago that reacting only fed them. But Hendricks wasn't finished. He stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor, and walked toward her table. His boots echoed in the sudden hush that fell over their section of the cafeteria. He stopped directly across from her, placing both hands on the table and leaning forward. "You know what I think, Reeves." His voice was low now, almost intimate, but still loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "I think you're just here to check a box. Diversity hire, make the army look good for the cameras. But when it really matters, when we're downrange and lives are on the line, you'll fold, and someone's gonna die because of it." Maya finally looked up. Her eyes, a deep brown that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, met his without flinching. She didn't speak. She simply held his gaze, her expression unreadable. The silence stretched. Hendricks expected anger, tears, some kind of reaction he could mock. Instead, he got nothing. It unnerved him. He straightened up, forced a laugh, and walked back to his table. But the discomfort lingered. Maya returned to her meal as if nothing had happened, chewing slowly, mechanically, while her heart hammered against her ribs. Across the cafeteria, near the officers' section, Lieutenant Colonel David Garrison had been watching the entire exchange. He was 52, a career ranger with silver threading through his buzz cut and eyes that had seen too much combat to tolerate bullies. He said nothing, but he made a mental note. Garrison believed in letting soldiers work through their conflicts, but he also believed in accountability. And he had a feeling Maya Reeves was about to teach this unit a lesson they desperately needed. The next morning, the base was buzzing with news. An emergency live-fire evaluation had been scheduled. Every ranger on base, regardless of rank or specialty, would participate. It wasn't standard, it wasn't expected, and that made everyone nervous. The evaluation would test everything: marksmanship, tactical decision-making, leadership under pressure, and physical endurance. Results would be posted publicly, performance would be reviewed by senior command. Careers could be made or broken in a single day. Maya received the notification like everyone else, a terse email with the report, time, and location. She felt a cold knot of anxiety form in her stomach, but she pushed it down. This was what she had trained for. This was her chance to prove, once and for all, that she belonged. She spent the evening preparing her gear, checking and rechecking every piece of equipment, cleaning her rifle until it gleamed under the barracks lights. She didn't sleep much. She never did before a big op. The evaluation began at dawn. The sky was still dark when the Rangers assembled on the range, breath misting in the cool morning air. They were divided into squads, each assigned a series of stations designed to push them to their limits. First was marksmanship. Standard targets at varying distances, timed shooting, stress positions. Maya stepped up to the line, her rifle feeling like an extension of her body. She controlled her breathing, focused on the fundamentals, and fired. One round after another, each shot precise, deliberate. When the scores were tallied, she had the second highest marks in her group. Hendricks, who went before her, had placed fourth. He didn't say anything, but his jaw was tight as he walked away. Next came the tactical scenario. Squads were given a simulated mission: locate and extract a high-value target from a hostile compound while under fire. It was chaos by design, with instructors playing enemy combatants, smoke grenades obscuring vision, and constant pressure to make split-second decisions. Maya's squad was led by a sergeant she barely knew, a man who ignored her suggestions and barked orders without listening. They moved into the compound recklessly, and within minutes, half the squad was marked as casualties by the evaluators. The mission was failing. Maya saw it happening. She saw the pattern the instructors were using, the gaps in their coverage, the route that would allow her squad to flank and complete the objective. She spoke up, her voice cutting through the noise. "Sergeant, if we push left through that corridor and suppress from the high ground, we can get to the target without losing anyone else." The sergeant glared at her. "I didn't ask for your input, Reeves." But another soldier, a corporal who had been watching Maya during the marksmanship test, spoke up. "Sarge, she's right. We're getting torn apart here." The sergeant hesitated, pride warring with pragmatism. Finally, he nodded. "Fine. Reeves, take point." Maya moved fast. She led them through the corridor, using hand signals to coordinate suppressive fire, keeping her squad low and tight. They reached the target room in under 3 minutes, neutralized the instructors playing guards, and secured the objective. When the evaluators called time, Maya's squad was one of only 2 that completed the mission successfully. The sergeant, breathing hard and covered in dust, looked at her with something that might have been respect. "Good call, Reeves." She nodded once and said nothing. The final test was endurance, a 12-mile ruck march with full gear up and down the Georgia hills in the rising heat. It was brutal, Soldiers started dropping out after the first 5 miles, collapsing on the side of the trail, medics checking them for heat exhaustion. Maya kept moving. Her shoulders burned under the weight of her pack, her legs felt like they were filled with lead. But she didn't stop. She focused on breathing, on rhythm, on putting one foot in front of the other. She passed soldiers who had mocked her, who had doubted her, who were now bent over and gasping for air. She didn't gloat. She didn't even look at them. She just kept walking. When she crossed the finish line, she was in the top 10%. Hendricks finished 20 minutes after her, his face red and twisted with frustration. He didn't meet her eyes. That afternoon, the results were posted outside the command building. A crowd gathered, soldiers pushing forward to see where they ranked. Maya hung back, her heart pounding. She didn't need to fight for a spot. She already knew she had done her best. But when the crowd started murmuring, when heads started turning to look at her, she felt a flicker of hope. Her name was third overall, out of nearly 200 rangers. Third, the only woman in the top 50, and her scores in marksmanship and tactical decision-making were the highest on the entire base. The murmurs grew louder. Some soldiers nodded in acknowledgement. Others looked uncomfortable, ashamed. Hendricks stared at the board for a long time, then walked away without a word. Maya allowed herself a small, private smile. She had done it. She had proven herself. But she knew this was just one battle. The war for respect was far from over. 2 days later, an announcement echoed across the base. All rangers were to assemble in the main briefing hall immediately. No exceptions. The room filled quickly, soldiers taking seats in the tiered rows, speculation running wild. What was this about? Another evaluation? A deployment? When the door at the front of the hall opened, the room fell silent. Major General Frank Callahan entered, his uniform immaculate, his expression unreadable. He was a legend in the Ranger community, a man who had led some of the most dangerous operations in modern military history. He rarely visited Fort Benning. His presence meant something significant was happening. Callahan walked to the podium, his boots echoing in the silent hall. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. 2 days ago, you completed one of the most comprehensive evaluations this base has ever conducted. The results were reviewed by myself and my staff. We wanted to see who among you embodies the Ranger Creed, who demonstrates courage, competence, and character under pressure. He paused, his eyes scanning the room. One name stood out above all others, not because of physical dominance, not because of years of experience, but because of consistency, intelligence, and an unshakable commitment to excellence. Maya felt her stomach drop. She was seated near the back, trying to make herself invisible. Callahan pulled a folder from under his arm and opened it. Sergeant Maya Reeves. Her name echoed through the hall like a thunderclap. Every head turned, hundreds of eyes locked onto her. She felt her face flush, her hands gripping the edge of her seat. Callahan continued, his voice firm and clear. Sergeant Reeves scored in the top 3% in marksmanship, led her squad to mission success when others failed, and completed the endurance course faster than 90% of you. But that's not why I'm standing here. He closed the folder and looked directly at her. I'm standing here because yesterday I reviewed her entire service record, 3 combat deployments, 2 Bronze Stars. A commendation for pulling a wounded soldier out of a firefight under heavy enemy fire, and not once, not in any report, did she ever seek recognition or praise. She just did the job. The room was silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Callahan's voice softened just slightly. That is what a ranger looks like. Not the loudest voice, not the biggest ego, but the one who shows up, does the work and makes everyone around them better. He gestured toward her. Sergeant Reeves, stand up. Maya's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst. She stood slowly, her legs shaking, her face burning. The entire room was staring at her. Callahan nodded. This base, this unit, is better because you're in it. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. Then he did something no one expected. He saluted her, a major general, saluting a sergeant. It was a gesture of respect so profound, so unprecedented, that for a moment no one moved. Then, one by one, soldiers began to stand. First the officers, then the NCOs, then everyone else. The entire room rose to its feet. And in the back corner near the door, Corporal Jake Hendricks stood too. His face was pale, his expression unreadable. But he stood. Maya felt tears prick her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She returned the general's salute, her hand steady despite the storm of emotions inside her. When Callahan lowered his hand, he spoke one more time. Dismissed. The room erupted into applause. It started slow, then built into a roar. Soldiers clapped, some whistled, others simply nodded with respect. Maya stood there, overwhelmed, as her brothers and sisters in arms acknowledged her in a way she had never experienced before. She had spent so long fighting to be seen, to be heard, to be valued, and now, finally, she was. Later that evening, as the sun set over Fort Benning, Maya walked alone across the base. She passed the dining facility where she had been mocked just days before. She thought about her mother, about her brother, about every person who had ever doubted her, and she realized something important. She hadn't proven herself to them. She had proven herself to herself. That was the only validation that truly mattered. The respect of others was a gift, not a requirement. Her worth wasn't determined by their approval. It was determined by her actions, her choices, her refusal to quit, even when everything screamed at her to give up. As she reached her barracks, she saw Hendricks standing near the entrance. He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. When he saw her, he straightened up. "Reeves!" She stopped, waiting. He took a breath. "I was wrong. What I said in the cafeteria, the way I treated you, it was wrong. You're a better ranger than I'll ever be." Maya looked at him for a long moment. She could have lashed out. She could have reminded him of every cruel word, every dismissive glance, but she didn't. Instead, she simply nodded. "We all have bad days, Hendricks. Just make sure tomorrow is better." Then she walked past him, into the barracks, leaving him standing there in the fading light. That night, Maya lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the base settling into sleep. She thought about the girl from Bakersfield, the one who had nothing and no one, the one who had been told she wasn't strong enough, wasn't tough enough, wasn't good enough. And she smiled, because that girl had become a ranger, and nothing, no one, could ever take that away from her. Honor isn't given, it's earned, not through words, but through actions, not through ego, but through humility. And it doesn't matter if you're the loudest voice in the room or the quietest. What matters is that when the moment comes, when everything is on the line, you show up. You do the work. You lift up those around you. Because that's what real strength looks like. That's what real courage is. If you believe that courage has no gender, that respect is earned through action, and that the quiet ones often have the loudest impact, drop a comment and say, "Honor." Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Because somewhere out there, there's a young person who's been told they don't belong, that they're not enough, that they should give up. And maybe, just maybe, this story will remind them that they are stronger than they know.